Hey everybody, welcome to Empty Bottle Sports. Corey here, as always, with Danny. We are one Zane down. He's got boss things to do with his real job. Danny, how are we doing? What are we drinking?
We're doing great. Super Bowl week. There's plenty of betting lines to go off of. College basketball is full swing. That's always fun this time of year. And we got some Belgian ale right now going, and it's all right. We'll see how we do it at the end of the can, but so far so good.
All right, that sounds better than what I've got, but I've got an old fashioned, not an old fashioned actually, just a whiskey Coke, but it's an old fashioned drink, I suppose.
All
Um,
right.
All right, so we are coming back from a bit of a hiatus there. Got busy with the holidays, and you know how things can snowball. So we're going to backtrack a little bit. And we're going to go over the college football playoff results. I figure we start with the semifinals and work our way towards the best part. Um, Danny, what did you think about the Washington Texas game and how all that played out?
Great game. Great game. Loved every second of it. I could not believe how close Washington was to blowing that. I mean, it literally came down to the last pass for Texas. I mean, it was right in the end zone. I think everybody knew which player. I don't even remember the wide receiver's name, but like he was frustrated that entire second half for not getting the ball enough, and he was visibly frustrated. And I think the Washington Huskies could pick up on that as well as the coaching staff. I think like if you're Texas, you can't not throw it to him at the end because if you don't throw it to him, then you're always left wondering why didn't you give it to your star receiver. So I think they just tried to force it there at the end, but I mean it was still a hell of a comeback to try to put themselves in position to even try to win that game. So that was a great comeback. Washington almost lost that, but it was a great game overall. I thought it was pretty much a shootout that we thought it was going to be, and it was a highly competitive game. It's pretty much what you want for these semifinal games. You don't want these blowouts.
Right. No, I think you hit the nail on the head all the way around the board here. I thought that was an awesome game. Washington definitely tried to lose it, and Texas definitely went with the predictable, maybe safety net play there. I mean, they had to go for it, obviously, but throwing it to him, it was everyone knew, right? We all knew where it was going. But I mean, you could make the argument from the other side. You know, when you've got Marshawn Lynch and you're on the 2-3 yard line, and you don't hand it to him, now
Yeah.
everyone wants to know why did Marshawn Lynch not get the ball. So I guess if you've got your guy, you have to give him that run. But yeah, it was a really fun game to watch,
It was.
and I got it wrong. I had Texas beating them, and I thought Texas would win. If I remember right, I thought they would win soundly. I thought it'd be a fun game to watch, but they would pull away late. I was wrong, and it all worked out in my favor anyway. So I'm not complaining at all.
All
Um,
across the board, across the four teams, I thought that was definitely one of the more competitive playoffs we've seen because we've seen some blowout in the semifinals and the championship game too. I mean, the last two
mm,
years there's just been blowouts when
yeah,
Georgia was in there. So and then Alabama's had a couple of blowouts, like when they played Michigan State, right around the one of the first few playoffs there. So there's been a lot of blowouts. So I thought all three games were really competitive and like you stayed on the edge of your seat the entire game for the most part.
definitely. We were lucky to have some actually competitive,
Especially
essentially.
that
I mean,
Rose
from
Bowl
beginning
game.
to end. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Rose Bowl went crazy.
yeah.
I wish I would have just spent the money and went, man. I
That it
really thought
looks
about it.
beautiful. The Rose Bowl is always like a picture perfect scene. Like I've always like promised myself like if Illinois ever makes the Rose Bowl game, like I'm taking off war on paid day or whatever. I'm making the trip out there because it just looks it's always picture perfect with that
It is.
skyline and then you get the sunset in the background off those mountains and I mean it just looked beautiful every single year. No matter which teams are playing, it's just the landscape is just always perfect.
Yeah, it's the granddaddy of them all. I mean, dude, if Illinois ever makes it, you have to go. I'm telling you
Yeah.
right now, I regret not going. So, I mean, this would have been literally the perfect time for me to go, and it's always been my first favorite bowl game by far. So my team makes it. We've gone undefeated all year with all of this
Yeah.
crazy stuff going on, and then wins it all. I mean, and I didn't go, Danny. I didn't go, and it
And
was a great game.
in my opinion, is obviously Michigan wins a national championship, right? That will forever be like the pinnacle of Michigan football, even probably more so than their last championship, just because of the stakes and who they had to play. But because it was against Alabama, who's pretty much owned college football for pretty much this past decade and a half, well, almost 2 decades worth, or at least been at the top part of college football. And the fact that it was, like you said, the granddaddy of them all, which is, I think Big Ten teams appreciate a lot more than like an SEC or Big 12 team does. I obviously winning the championship, that would have been an awesome game to be at. But I think if you had to pick one game, I think the Rose Bowl semifinal game was probably the one to be at this year,
Yeah, I
even
mean
more so than the Ohio
overtime.
State game.
Yeah, I mean this year I would agree with you. Everything about that game. I mean that like I knew once they won that, it just I mean I told you
Yeah,
from the start of the season I had a feeling this year. And I think everyone at some point in their fandom says that, but I really just I
sure.
had this gut feeling and when they won that game, I it was over in my head. I was like there's no way they lose now.
Yeah,
It's what they've done all year and I genuinely thought that Alabama was a better team than Washington and I still do. Not to take anything away from Washington because they were really really good this
yeah,
year, but I think they out of all of the playoff teams this year matched up the worst against Michigan in my
yes,
opinion.
yes.
They
I
were
would
the
agree
least
with that.
physical of all of those teams, and I think that was the end for them. But yeah, no, that game, man, if I could pick one game in Michigan football history to go to, it would be between that game and Michigan beating Ohio State for the first time in however long, what, 3 years ago now, in
Yes,
the
the snow
snow
game.
in Ann Arbor. Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be between those two. I mean, it was nuts.
I would
It's
have
the
honestly say the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy, and obviously then we have the college football playoff finals, Michigan and Washington. Obviously, we know how that went. Now, I am a very happy boy. It took 26 years for me to get another one, and we don't have to share this one with some retiring coach somewhere that no one's ever heard of. Um, but yeah, I
No
should say
sharing,
that
yeah.
everyone knows who that is. But yeah, no, it's. I mean, what did you think about the game? I mean, I think I've talked about it a lot.
We
So
talked about and I felt even when the score was somewhat close, I still felt pretty safe. And I'm from the outside looking in, like the Alabama Michigan game, I was like, I feel like Michigan has kind of been the ownership of this game, but they kind of made a little bit too many mistakes to keep Alabama in that game. Self-inflicted
Mhm.
wounds there. So, but like this national championship game, I was like, Michigan could still make a couple of mistakes, but like, and the game could be like tied, but I would still feel like everybody in the stadium would still feel like Michigan was in control of that game. There was a couple times like in the late first half and early the second half where I was just like, thinking, not even early second half because Washington turned it over, but like late first half where I was like, man, Washington has really flipped the script, but like I still feel like Michigan's in control. Kind of like that feeling you had about after beating Alabama in the Rose Bowl game where it was pretty confident and really low stress. That's how I kind of felt as just a third party viewer. It's just like, I mean, Washington, even talent wise, they don't match up with Michigan, but they kept going out of their way to mess up in that game. And I really thought that, yeah, Michigan definitely won that game, but Washington really just, I mean, they just pooped the bed, honestly, with
oh
so many
yeah,
drop passes, so many overthrows.
miscues.
It's not like they
Hmm.
didn't have bad, like, or have bad play calls. I mean, they had really good play calls, and for such
Hmm.
a
They
good
had guys
defense,
open too.
yeah, for such a good Michigan defense that's just vaunted secondary. I mean, Washington really could have had their way with Michigan's secondary in that second half on multiple occasions, but they just can never capitalize. And I think that's kind of something that they're going to look back on and be like, we left a lot on the table there. So
Definitely.
definitely, props to Michigan because they were just all around better team. Like their mistakes don't cost them as much. Washington had to play a perfect game for them to win that game. Michigan, they could have played their regular B game and could have won that game. And they played well enough to win that game, and it never really was close, even though the score kind of says otherwise.
I agree. Honestly, and this is going to sound kind of insulting to Washington fans probably at first, and I don't mean it this way, but they remind me they are a scarier Maryland team to me.
Yeah,
They're explosive as all hell. They're scary fast. They've got a great
yeah,
quarterback. They've got solid defensive pieces, and they never have that complete package when they
yeah,
play a team like that. Because Michigan's strength this year was twofold. One, wildly gritty. They just always, the last several years, they've just been really, really tough. And they talk about it a lot, so I don't want to beat this to death. But toughness and like physicality, and then they were incredibly consistent. They're just well coached. They were not prone to errors. They take the ball away because of that a lot, and they don't give it up a lot because of that.
Yes.
So I knew that Washington's a team that is going to take risks and play for downfield plays, and the quarterback's going to get out of the pocket and make some problems and extend some plays, and that's exactly what you get with Maryland. And they
Yeah.
have some big playmakers, but I mean, Michigan was like living in Penix's head, so I had a feeling that it was just smooth coast on that.
I think that is a great comp. I think they're Maryland minus the second half of the season drop offs that Maryland always seems to have. I mean, how many times do we see Maryland being the sleeper team in the Big East, pretty much the Big Ten East Division, when they start off like 5-1 or even 6-1, they even get a bowl game, and then they just lose 4 out of 6 on the back half games, and then they just kind of
Yeah,
squeak in for like a 6-6 or 7-5 record under Loxley, Mike Loxley.
yeah.
It's just classic Maryland. I mean, they should be. I feel like they should be an average 8-win team in the Big Ten with how much talent on offense they've had over the past 4 years.
Well, imagine what they would do in the pack. I've been saying it all year
Yeah,
long. It's a weak conference. They have great offenses, but nothing in the way of defense. So when they play a team that has a defense, they're lost and don't know what to do. And that is kind of what Maryland does. It
yeah.
keeps their athleticism and talent, explosiveness keeps them alive for usually a half, and then they are done.
They
So
reminded me some of those Mason Rudolph Oklahoma State Cowboy teams where it was just like
just
you knew they could blow the
stat
doors off
padding.
of you. Yeah, they just had the offensive stats, but man, if they had to get into a grudge match and like the defense needed to be called upon, I mean,
No,
forget it.
yeah, it's over.
Yeah,
100% I agree with you. It's similar to Oklahoma. If
yeah,
they couldn't outscore you, just pure offense, no defense to be heard of, it was over.
yeah.
So, I just a happy boy. I'm just a happy boy, Danny.
Take the win,
Um,
and you know what? Even if next year doesn't go that great with the new coaching staff, and let's kind of talk about that. I mean, do you feel
yeah.
like confidence in the coaching staff? It's like okay, definitely not going to be as good as last year
No,
with the
I mean
coaching
that's the
staff
best
kind of
Michigan team of all time.
turnover, right? And it's just I think people are going to be riding the high. I think people maybe kind of looked at this team as kind of like not a one and done, but as long as Coach Harbaugh was there, or the second he left, all right, it was going to be like a one and done, and not like a trying to set up for a dynasty. I
Yeah,
honestly think Michigan fans will be content. I wouldn't say content because like the first loss, you're going to be like, what the hell? But it's
understanding
still
is a better word.
yeah,
Understanding.
it's just
Yeah.
not going to hurt as much, maybe.
Listen, you can't make me sad right now. I have Michigan basketball actively happening, and barring last night beating Wisconsin, I have Michigan basketball actively happening around me. And I tell you what, I am oblivious. I feel nothing. You can't hurt me now. Nothing can hurt me, Danny. I don't care. I'll walk out into traffic. They're just gonna bounce.
Michigan basketball right now is a dumpster fire. That's for sure.
Juwan, I hate to say it because I like it, but he's got to go. I don't understand. Unless
It's
they run the table somehow, I mean, and they're not going to, then I don't understand how he could possibly still have his job.
no, it's crazy because it looks like the players have just given up to. I mean, I know,
Yeah.
like you said, they won at home against Wisconsin. That's actually a really good win for them. I mean, that's a quad one win right there, and should be for the rest of the
Hmm.
season. But I mean, there's just so many other blemishes on that record, and
Oh,
like you
it's
said,
terrible.
unless they don't run
Yeah.
the table, it's just gonna be they're done.
Hey, I don't see how this can be salvaged at this point. I mean, mathematically, is there a possibility? Probably. Is it so infinitesimally I'm not even going to try again. So
Yeah.
small that like it's not even worth considering? Probably. Yeah. But as far as the football program goes, I mean, confidence is there. Not in the back-to-back repeat necessarily. That would be pretty awesome, but I'm not expecting anything like that. I still wouldn't be surprised to see them be the second best team in the Big Ten next year or better. But I don't. I mean, even if they were to somehow win the Big Ten next year, and let's be honest, Ohio State's team is stacked. Oregon is going to be
Year after
scary.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, Oregon's going to be scary. Penn State's still going to be Penn State, so
I
they're going to
keep
be
forgetting that they're joining. I mean,
nothing.
that's gonna be
It's
nice.
going to be crazy. And Michigan, I mean, they have. Have you seen their schedule for next year?
I have not. I haven't
Texas,
looked at theirs. No, I know they
Texas,
play. It's a rematch against or they
Washington.
play Texas and
Yeah,
they play Washington, right?
Texas, Washington, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, I think again, and somebody
Wow.
else.
So it's an
I think,
absolute
yeah,
gauntlet.
it is.
You could be looking at like an 8-4 season,
Yeah, yeah,
and not
realistically, it's
having a bad
possible.
loss on this, and not having a bad loss on the season.
Yeah, it's very possible. They play football schedule. Um, they go from Fresno State to playing Texas. It's at home, thankfully. Arkansas State, USC, Minnesota, Washington, bye week, Illinois, Michigan State, Oregon, IU, Northwestern, Ohio State.
That's going to
So
be an absolute gauntlet of
yeah,
a yeah.
it's gonna be.
That's speaking of which, that's the dedication game at Memorial Stadium for Illinois football, where I think it was like
Hmm.
the Red Grange Galloping Ghost game when they dedicated the stadium in 1924. We got to go to that game. That's down in Champaign, so we got to make a trip out of that empty bottle sports trip out of
I will give it my best if I'm living on this side of the country. There's
that.
the possible move in the works, so we'll
All
see. It's
right.
it's seeming more likely, but maybe I can swing it. It'd be pretty awesome. Um, yeah, I confidence is there though. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see 8-4, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see one loss being Ohio State. It could go either way. I have every confidence in Sherrell Moore to be a great head coach for many, many years to come at Michigan. This was the right hire. They did it quickly. Um, they didn't really fuss around with anything. They got the job done. They got the guy that we wanted, at least that I wanted, and definitely the guy the players wanted if Harbs was out, which he was, obviously. Um, it'll be interesting to see what happens with DC with Minter leaving. I think that
Yes.
the
Yeah.
word on the street is that uh, they've got their guy in mind, and he could be hired any day. And I'm blanking on his name, but it'll come to me. Um, I'm feeling okay. It's
Cool.
not crazy, but I'm feeling all right.
He's
We
riding the
haven't seen
high.
a
He
mass
is riding the
exodus in the
high.
transfer portal for sure. Yeah, yeah, haven't seen the mass exodus in the transfer portal yet, so
Yeah.
not totally freaking out. And the team was so deep last year that these guys coming in played almost starting minutes. Like they really split it pretty. They were rotating guys on the D line all the time. So
Yeah, that shows you the depth of a team if they can rotate guys in and out. You don't want to have a
mhm,
D lineman playing 80% of your snaps if you can help
yeah,
it.
for sure. Well, how are we feeling about Illinois going into next year? What's the temp?
Our floor has been raised. When I was in school from 15 to 19, no bowl games. We went 5-7, and then 3-9, 2-10, and 4. So I mean, like average 3.5 wins a year. Now with Bielema's teams, we've gone 5 wins, 8 wins, 5 wins again, and it's just so. I feel like the program could be on such steadier ground if on just one of those 5-7 years they could have gotten a bowl game out of it.
Yeah,
Just so many close losses, and most of the losses we've had at Illinois have been pretty competitive losses, if of the
yeah,
losses. So
hmm
I mean that's a complete narrative change from when I was in school, right before this program started with Bielema. And I know that's a really low bar, but like now I want to start going from a close loss program to now winning close and getting to that 6 and 7 wins a year, making that your floor as a program. And then, every, let's say, 5 years, you vault to like a 9 or 10 win season in there that you throw in there. And then you're challenging for the playoff. But then have your floor, like when you're rebuilding almost, you have it be like a 6 or 7 win team. Because, I mean, Illinois, with how close you are to Chicago, the Metro East St. Louis area, Indianapolis, there's just so much recruiting ground.
yeah,
And you're the flagship of one of the most populous states in the country. I mean, Illinois is like a sleeping giant as far as what their football program could be based on of proximity and amount
yeah,
of alumni. So they really should be on the national stage more than they are right now. I think Bielema is the guy to get them there, but there's been a lot these past 2 years just due to guys leaving for NFL jobs and like coordinator jobs. So like they're they're going up in the coaching tree, but it still hurts to have that turnover. So I think as long as you have head coach continuity and coordinator continuity, I think that's the most important thing. Assistant coaches are going to come and go, but if you can get, lineman coach continuity, coordinator, and head coach, I think you're okay overall. And then, you know what? It's just at that point, it's just the players executing in the weight and development program. You just hope that as a development program, that the guys you invested in scholarships 3 years ago, those 3 stars that the Michigans and Oregons of the world kind of passed over, that they kind of reached their way to the top, and as juniors and seniors, that they can actually make a difference. So I'm confident in the program overall. It's not where I'd want it to be, but it's definitely moving in the right direction, I think.
That's good. I think I agree with a lot of that. I think that they could be really, really something for a lot of reasons. I mean, any Big Ten program has money to throw
Yeah,
around, first of all, and they're certainly one of them.
yeah,
Um, I think you do just kind of have to sometimes do that thing where you catch lightning in a bottle too with this kind of situation. Have one of those crazy runs, and then it might just set it into just a slide at that point. Um, but I think a big thing that you're going to see happening and already see happening, I mean, Michigan does it, where they've almost got a funnel because you talked about coaches leaving and
yeah,
trying to replace them, maintain a culture, and do all these things. Michigan has had this continuous funnel via the Harbaughs from the Ravens to the university and then back out into the NFL. They like
yeah,
take like a linebackers coach out of the Ravens tree of amazing defensive minds for whatever reason, funnel him down to Ann Arbor, pump out a historic defense, stay for 2 years, beat the snot out of some teams, and then send them to the NFL, and they're off on their merry way, a la Mike McDonald and Jesse Minter.
yeah.
And the name I was trying to think of was Wink Martindale, is who they're supposedly hiring.
Okay.
Same idea there. I'm pretty pumped on that, actually, if that's for real. But yeah, I think that's going to be happening a lot with teams. You're going to see these big name teams probably start to snap up those connections and like try to
Yeah.
set that funnel. It's just like, certain prep schools and high schools feed into certain programs pretty often.
Right. And I think Illinois, they should be very, very glad that they're part of the Big Ten ship that like they have a lifeboat essentially. Like
Oh
they're
yeah.
not, like in, one day when they make a super conference, I hope that Illinois is always a part of that just because of the alumni they have across the country. It's one of the largest in the country, and the fact that their proximity to the third largest city in the nation, which is
Hmm.
college. It is a sports town, but there's so many Big Ten alumni in there that I think Illinois is just so important. So I don't want to get I don't think we'll ever get left behind, but I also don't want us to be left in to be the doormat. I want us to
Yeah.
be where
Competitive.
Michigan has to worry about going to Illinois one year because my God, that is a very spunky 8-4 team that like
You
they're
want to be Iowa.
right. They're ranked, Illinois is ranked like 29 in the polls, like receiving votes, but if you have to go to their house, it's a pick'em game essentially. Like I want
Not
to be
not somewhere
that.
anyone wants to be.
Right.
Fair
Right. I
enough.
want to be able to spring an upset like every year of like a ranked team and
Storm
like
that field, Danny.
yeah, right.
I
So
yeah, I get it.
I just want it to be like and they have been that. They've been competitive. I mean, Michigan was on the ropes when Illinois went to their house. I mean,
Yep.
it was at Illinois. I think Illinois wins that game because it's at home. Like it was just literally just like a coin
It's
toss.
one of
And
those games, yeah.
yeah, and so Illinois. I think they're okay moving forward, and it's just gonna take some time and a few years for the team and fans to get a little bit more confidence in the program, keep that donor money rolling in, and I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be nice. Like, it is nice. Michigan had some really terrible years themselves. It is nice when you're just like, kind of like, well, I'm in the Big Ten. What are you gonna do?
Right.
We're here for the long ride. Screw off.
Hmm.
It's like like Vandy. They're just like, we're here.
You're always
No
gonna,
one,
yeah.
no one knows it, but we're here.
I know. And Vanderbilt is like they just never had their Pat Fitzgerald because they're the Northwestern of the South, where they're in a great city. You're right downtown. I mean, Evanston is a little bit north of Chicago, but still, you're like the proximity to a major city in the South. you should be able to be, squeaking out like 6-6 bowl games here and there.
Some surprise
Um,
5-star commits from home.
yeah, right. Stay home. And with those, keep a Tennessee guy home, but it's just I don't see that program changing anytime
No,
soon. I just
no,
don't.
I don't either. Pretty much across the board, every Big Ten team, you can see a way that they become
Yeah,
something. I don't. Maybe it's because I don't know enough about them, but I'm
every
looking down
team
at
has something to
Vanderbilt and
lean
thinking,
on.
no shot. Yeah, yeah, and something to be excited about. All of them.
Yeah,
And it's you look over there. Well, maybe not Michigan State. Maybe not
yeah,
Michigan
maybe
State.
not Michigan State, right? I mean,
Maybe
like
not
the
little brother.
history. I know there's just so much flux in that administration, and there's just
I think it's just on
no
fire.
there's no confidence in the leadership there, I would say. Like the
Mm-mm.
brand is still somewhat strong, but it's fragmented and there's no confidence in the leadership. I
It's
thought that
living
was a
off the
great
back.
hire that they're able to pull the Oregon State head coach.
That was a good hire. It was. But so maybe they have something to be excited about, actually. But I wouldn't be confident
No, they're gonna be little brother. They
for a
they
while.
treated they treated Michigan like their little brother for a better part of a decade for a while there. And I think that the script has officially flipped since Mark D'Antonio left for good.
Yeah, I mean, he had the benefit of coaching through the worst period of Michigan football
Yeah,
in like probably ever, actually.
yeah.
But I mean, it happened, and we were terrible, and they definitely owned us for a while there. I mean, and then trouble with the punt, that was horrid. I'll never forget that. That was actually scarring. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody's got something to be excited about. I'm definitely excited for some things with Michigan, and we we obviously are going to try to get to that game because I want to see. I've never been actually to Champaign, so
Yeah. No,
it'd be pretty cool to check it
we'll
out.
look at our options. I think it's going to be a barn burner. Especially that would be sick if they can make it a night game. We'll see. But either way,
Wow,
that'll be Illinois' chance. I mean, because Michigan will be quote unquote rebuilding. I know in the transfer portal
invulnerable.
age, that's kind of not really a thing anymore. But like, still, it's a
Hmm.
reset mentally. Illinois is trying to get back on the national scene, like they were a couple years ago, and I think this is the game to do it. Even if Illinois goes 7-5 this year, if you have a marquee win against Michigan, the defending national champions at home, I mean that's a successful season right there. Even if
For
even
sure.
if you
Yeah,
squeak out a bowl game, I think that's a successful
yeah.
season.
And I think they're going to be good next year. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
this is going to be one of those like Michigan fell off horribly and we beat them, but they were the champions
Right.
last
No.
years. I think
No.
this if that's a win, that's still I think going to be a really good win to have. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it should be a really fun thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we get down to something we haven't already gotten to see?
Let's do it.
Let's get down to some Super Bowl predictions. We've got some teams that are not unfamiliar to us being in Super Bowls recently. I don't know about you, but seeing the Chiefs and the 49ers helmets up against each other is not something I was excited to see.
No.
I have little excitement for it other than it's just football, and
Yeah.
there really are going to be great players on the field. So, Danny, why don't you lead us off? What's your prediction for this game? You can be as specific as you want, or
I yeah, I know the 49ers are favored, but how can you vote or bet against the Chiefs again after what they showed in this playoffs? So I
yeah.
know they had a
Spoiler
rough
alert, I'm
regular
not.
season. Yeah, they had a rough regular season. Um, but man, what they showed against the Bills, what they showed against the Ravens, I mean, they just showed that they could find a way no matter what. That when the playoffs started, that if there's a veteran team, they know what to do, they know how to act, they know that they got in the bag, and that experience showed in these playoffs for them. So the 49ers, they've been there, they've done that, they've been to the Super Bowl. I just when it's coming down to you need one final drive to make it happen, are you really putting in Brock Purdy's hands to be that gamer? I know he's a great game manager, but when it's a 2 minute drill, do you trust him or Patrick Mahomes to get it done? And let's say you only have 22 seconds on the clock. Do you really trust Brock Purdy to be able to do something special when we've seen Patrick Mahomes time and time again make something out of nothing with what you thought was not enough time. So I just can't bet against the Chiefs. Like I told myself never again until they prove to me otherwise that they're going to lose one of these high end games. I just have to put my brain and heart with the Chiefs because it would just be stupid to do otherwise at this point. It's like betting against Jordan at this point.
I can't really disagree with you. I really think on paper, I agree with 49ers being the favorite, and on paper, I think they should win this game. But when it comes down to it, you're not wrong. I think that the we've done this, we've been here is a lot stronger with Kansas City for obvious reasons. And if you've got 2 minutes and you need a score to win, I would trust either of these quarterbacks to get it done against most teams. But if you've got less than a minute to score and you've got to drive more than 30 yards, I have every dollar in my bank account on Patrick Mahomes and none
Yeah,
of it on Purdy. I'm sorry, but I get it's annoyed with hearing the Patrick Mahomes obsession and ranting is anybody, but it's just true. He does some magical stuff. I'm not saying he does
yeah,
it that much more than a lot of other guys
magician.
in certain ways, but in this matchup, he's the magician for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do think that if the 49ers, because I have Kansas City winning this game. I think it's relatively close. I cannot see it being more than 7 points, probably less than. Maybe 3.5 would be a good line for me if I were going to take a gamble at this. But I will say that if the 49ers want to win, two players have to have big games. And that's if he's playing. I'm not sure on the health, but Debo Samuels has to have a big game, and CMC has to have a big game.
Yeah,
If either one of them doesn't, I cannot see how they win this game.
I think people will find a way to be out there. He's got because I mean
He
he
has
he
to.
was in the NFC. I mean he played in the championship game, so I think find a way to be out there.
I
Um,
agree. I just hadn't heard anything, and I knew he'd been hurt. If he's playing, which I expect him to play, I can't. Like you said, I
yeah,
mean, how do you not play this game? And he's one of those guys. He is one of those guys. If you put the ball in his hands, crazy crap is going to happen. I
hmm
mean,
yeah.
and they have CMC, who is the best running back in the game right now. I mean, they could
He,
do it. I do have
I mean,
Kansas City,
not
but if those two have go off,
right. Knock on wood, his durability has been insane. Same with Pacheco. I love watching Belcho run. I mean, I think it's so funny watching him run. Just like the way he tries to kill the earth when he's running on the ground.
yeah,
It's just so fun
stomping.
to watch. Yeah. I just love the how hard he plays with that. You know how hard he plays. It's just so good to
Hmm.
see. So I'm really pumped to watch the Super Bowl. I would have loved to have seen the Lions or the Ravens in the Super Bowl because I would have liked to have seen something a little bit different. But I mean, I think from the beginning of the year, the 49ers, everybody thought was going to at the very least make the NFC Championship game this year. The Chiefs, maybe after a few weeks, people thought, okay, maybe they're not what they used to be, but like talent wise, we know they still have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey, and
Hmm.
like as long as Andy Reid is coach, like they're
It
always
ain't
gonna be able
broke,
to find
don't
a
fix
way.
it.
Just yeah, they're the new Patriots of the AFC, really.
Yeah, it's
So I
great. It's
mean,
crazy.
yeah, they're not out until they're either mathematically eliminated from the playoffs or they got beat in the playoffs. That there's you cannot bet against them. So I don't think gun to my head at the beginning of the season, I would have been surprised that these two teams were in the Super Bowl. Would have liked to have seen other teams, but I do think that these are some of at least two of the top five best teams in the NFL playing today or on Sunday.
Definitely. I 100% agree. I mean, and consistent too. I mean, more the 49ers, I feel like, on consistency, but over a couple years stretch, probably the Chiefs. So it's pretty nuts. I mean, I like what you were talking about. I love a running back that runs angry. I love any player in the NFL that runs angry. But when a
Yeah.
running back runs angry, I mean, it reminds me of like that one year where Peyton Hillis was with the Browns and he would run
Yes.
through everybody. I mean, it didn't matter if Ray Lewis was standing in front of him foaming at the mouth. Peyton Hillis was going to do his best to put his shoulder through
Yeah.
his
hmm
sternum. Like,
Yeah.
that was crazy.
They
It
play with
was
so much passion.
crazy.
You just love to see that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, guys like Adrian Peterson in his prime when he would just run angry and he could
Yeah.
dance around you if he wanted to, but he didn't have to. He could stiff arm you until you were eating 6 feet of dirt. Like it was crazy. It was crazy. But all right, well, why don't we get down to some fun stuff here?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's
I'm
do
gonna look
some
at
scrolling on DraftKings.
let's
See
look
if
at
we
it
can
here.
find some some places to throw money into the fire. I know we talked a little bit about this earlier.
Yeah, so we were talking some novelty props. Obviously, there's, the classic over under. Now the Chiefs are, instead of a 2.5 point underdog, it's two. So that shows that a lot of public money is going on the Chiefs. And I think last time we checked, it was like 77% of the money. So, you know, Vegas was built on betting against the people. So if you're maybe looking for a little bit of a slide there, maybe bet on the favorite, the 49ers, to get that cover there. But there's some, the classic ones, the coin toss. What I did, Corey, was I did the Gatorade color and I did red because it's, it was plus 375 when I did it, but I just figured both teams are red. Kind of a pretty decent chance of Gatorade being red. I know there's not really an exact science to it, but I thought that was a interesting value pick right there.
Sure, sure. This isn't as much a novelty pick, and it's only because I just scrolled over it. But I gotta point out that for this is always a scary bet for obvious reasons. But for the first touchdown score, Travis Kelsey's plus 700.
That's not terrible. I mean,
I
wasn't he the first scorer in the AFC game?
I don't know. I don't remember. He might have been.
He's,
That's obviously Mahomes' go-to guy. If they're throwing the ball, he's almost a surefire target in the end zone or anywhere
yeah.
on the field. Debo Samuel's plus 85. I don't know if I would, if it were, or 850. I'm sorry if I said 85 there.
I like.
I
There's
don't
an also.
know.
Yeah, I think what we were talking about before the show started was the octopus. If a player scores the touchdown, are they going to score the 2 point conversion? I've never even
It would
heard
be,
that bet before. It happened last year with Jalen Hurts.
yeah.
I think that's a fun bet right there. I always think, will a lineman score a TD? That's at plus 4,000. I think that's fun to do.
That's
Um,
nice.
and then I think even DraftKings has a Taylor Swift one.
Oh, there's no
Yeah,
way they don't.
it's called for the Swifties. So each of these bets are based off of her, different songs and albums. So like Anti-Hero is Brock Purdy for 250 plus passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Blank Space is
Oh,
Travis Kelsey to score an octopus
I
plus
found it. Oh
3,000.
my God.
That's just nuts. I mean these are insane value, but um, I think what is maybe kind of a fun one, it's almost like you're betting the over, but it's any quarter to have 22 plus points scored. So pretty much,
22.
I mean, that's 3 touchdowns at least. And that's not, yeah, I mean, you got to have a 2 point conversion in there or a fourth possession where you're having a score. I mean, so pretty much not one team can have a three and out or you lost
Yeah,
that quarter pretty much.
that's not gonna work. No way. I could not do it. Friendship bracelets, Travis Kelsey or Usyk. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah,
I've
that
never known.
his wife makes the jackets or something.
Yeah, those were really neat. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't want a Taylor Swift or Travis Kelsey themed anything, but that is kind of awesome.
yeah.
Did you see there was one, it was near the top. Oh yeah, it's called Fearless, and it has Brock Purdy at 300 plus pass yards
That's what I was
and
saying.
three.
Or that
Is
was
that what you were talking
anti-hero.
about?
No, that was an
Okay, yeah.
anti-hero. I see the one you're
Oh,
talking about. Wow,
yeah.
that's even
It's only
more
at plus
aggressive.
1,000 for
Wow,
300 yards or more, 3 touchdowns, and for the win. How is that only plus 1,000? Are they
that's even
expecting?
more aggressive than the anti-hero one.
Yeah, that
Jeez.
only at plus 1,000 too. Like that should be 12 or
Yeah,
1,300. Vegas, you can kick a rock and step on a Lego. There's no shot. I'll stick with the Gatorade colors, man.
yeah,
No
yeah.
way.
And doing the over/under for the national anthem. Those are always fun ones. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
throw.
Well, we know
Maybe
you're
I'll
gonna.
let him do one Taylor Swift bet or something. I'll let her choose. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I
this is
mean,
how
we'll have to
Vegas
string
makes their
together
money.
some silly ones. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They make their money on
But
us
if one of
mostly.
these bets hit, you pretty much have all of your bets covered from the Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah. When I place 30, win one, but I still end up okay. You're right.
Yeah.
It's pathetic, but it's my path, and I'm committed.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, all right. I think that will close us out more than likely here. Danny, how is your interesting beverage that I am jealous of?
Fine. I I'll drink the rest of them that are in my fridge. I think someone brought them to one of the parties we had here. I'm not going to go out of my way to buy it again, though. I think I'll stick with the my usual beers, but it's
Yeah,
fine.
nothing crazy. All
Yeah, it's
right. Well,
good.
the whiskey pop was good. I think you probably saw it emptied like less than halfway through the episode, so I unfortunately made quick work of that. Um, but
Stuff.
folks, I'm sure we'll talk to you after the Super Bowl, and we'll go over the results. Hopefully, we'll have our fearless leader Zane back. So,
Yes.
signing off.